Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. We're coming to you this Thursday, unfortunately, from a very sick city, a place where many of the people in charge aren't just wrong, but increasingly are irrational. Washington is in the grip of unprecedented mass hysteria over Russia. Yes, Russia. Take 3 steps back. It's a freezing poor country on the other side of the globe where the average life expectancy is lower than that in Bangladesh. Russia is a place whose economy is smaller than the economy of Texas. It's a country that can barely produce a working escalator or non-poisonous vodka. And yet that country, which was regarded by sober people as sad and increasingly irrelevant, is, according to Democrats in Washington, in virtually complete control of the workings of the U.S. government. They tell us that every day, and they're starting to seem like they believe it. That's demented. The most striking new example comes from former Director of National Intelligence, Jim Clapper. In an interview just yesterday, Clapper claimed that Russia flipped the result of the 2016 election, got Trump elected over Hillary. Asked for evidence of that, Clapper admitted he didn't have any, because of course he doesn't have any. Nobody else has any either. There is no evidence that any foreign country changed a single American vote in 2016. And by the way, that was Clapper's position just 2 years ago, when it was the position of the Obama administration that vote tampering by a foreign power was completely irresponsible and impossible to contemplate. Now that Trump is in office, of course, Clapper and other Democrats are warning that Russia will try to subvert this year's midterms as well. They have no evidence for that either. Now, keep in mind that Jim Clapper is not some fringe radio show host or backbencher in Congress. For years, he held one of the top intelligence posts in the country. Yet he's delusional. That's terrifying. And he's not the only delusional one. The CIA operative spying on the Trump campaign also sounds like he's unbalanced. A report today from the Daily Caller finds that that man once falsely accused a Russian academic at Cambridge University of being a Russian infiltrator and said an entire intelligence seminar was compromised by Russian agents, like Kim Philby were still alive. This afternoon, congressional leaders received a classified briefing from DOJ and intel officials about actual spying that took place in 2016. Not spying from spooky Russian agents sent from the Kremlin, but from the Obama FBI. And that might put some of this in perspective. Tom Fitton is the president of Judicial Watch. Molly Hemingway is an editor at The Federalist. They join us now. Thank you to you both. Molly, I'll start with you. And I hate to start on a media question, but it determines how people understand a story, what they read and what they see on television. There are still news outlets as of tonight that are pretending like there was no spying on the Trump campaign. So can you just say definitively, do we know as a factual matter that the Obama FBI spied on the Trump campaign, or don't we?
Well, everyone knows that there was a spy, and in fact, people who were involved in the spying are admitting that there is a spy. They're saying, though, that because the government term is human intelligence informant or something like that, that therefore it's not a spy. Whereas normal Americans understand that when you are gathering information on someone surreptitiously, that's the common definition of spying. And more than that, that's just a stunning revelation that this was happening under the previous administration, that there would be this kind of surveillance, not just at least one human intelligence informant, but also wiretaps, national security letters, which are how you can secretly get a subpoena, and who knows what else is going on. So actually, like, widespread spying involving multiple people in the Trump campaign, and we still don't really know what's going on because they're trying to fight.
And that's the point. And by the way, I should point out in the interest of honesty that these are agencies controlled by the Trump White House. So it's not clear to me at all why we don't know this, and that why the committees in the Congress who have oversight over all of this don't know. There was a meeting today, famously, about this, Tom. Do you think members of Congress, again charged with oversight of this stuff, know the answer as of tonight?
No, my understanding is they're still being strung along. This meeting was for show. We want to see the documents.
But why would they be strung along?
Because these agencies have contempt for congressional oversight. You have this extraordinary situation of a Republican-controlled Justice Department and FBI attacking and undermining the congressional oversight activities of a Republican-controlled House and Senate. And they didn't want to turn over the documents, so they said, we'll have a meeting and we'll talk about the secret spy game we had, but it won't be public. We won't tell you what we have in terms of turning over documents, which is still the big fight. You know, Judicial Watch specializes in the Freedom of Information Act because we recognize the government documents really tell you what went on, and government official descriptions of what went on, as we're learning from the Obama gang that's describing this spy as an informant in a dishonest way. We need to see the documents. We need to know how much money was this person paid, Was money transferred as a result of his involvement with the Trump campaign? Who else was he working with? Were there others?
But there's a time limit. There's a timer. Sand is passing through the hourglass here. If Democrats take the House and take majority control of these committees, then how will we find out? They have no interest in getting this information to the public.
And this is why it would be nice if everyone on both sides of the aisle had a common understanding that spying on political opponents is not a good precedent, and it's not good for having Americans having confidence in the FBI.
Have you seen any liberals say that?
I mean, there have been a few, I think very exceedingly few. Mark Penn is someone who was a Clinton advisor who has been making that argument. In addition to the issue that the Department of Justice thinks that they are accountable to no one, not the president under in whose branch they serve, or Congress, which funds them and created them, I think it also must mean that the information is really damaging, really dangerous, that they're willing to subvert any authority in order to keep that a secret. So this is something that I think they can keep this from getting out. I don't think they will actually.
Yeah, and the pretexts they use to hide this information from public view are dishonest. So tonight, Eric Felton, a reporter in Washington, has a piece explaining that one of the many facts redacted by the FBI in documents obtained through FOIA reveals that Andy McCabe spent $70,000 on a piece of office furniture. They held that back on grounds of national security. Does that imperil us, Tom, as a country, now that our enemies know that Andy McCabe spent $70,000 on a piece of office furniture?
I mean, of course it doesn't. And it shows you that the FBI and Department of Justice can't be trusted to evaluate fairly whether documents should be released or not. And the president, who constitutionally runs the agencies, needs to intervene and stop himself from being strung along by his appointees, and tell them to release these records.
Right,
review them quickly.
Never listen to your lawyers. If there's one piece of advice I have for my children, it's don't listen to your lawyers, because they don't have the truth at heart.
Take their advice into account and get the information out.
Just do the right thing, I would say. Thank you both very much. Great to see you. Richard Goodstein is an attorney, by the way. We're going to listen to him. He advised both of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaigns. He joins us tonight. Richard, thanks a lot for coming on. So Democrats are now telling us that not only did Russia definitively alter the outcome of the 2016 election, which is insane, but they're predicting that Russia will affect the outcome of the 2018 midterms. This is preemptive because they know they're not going to do as well as they hoped. But let's take them seriously. If that's true, why shouldn't we be taking steps right now to protect ourselves? Why shouldn't we do a forensic search of all voter rolls to make sure that no foreign citizens are registered to vote? Russian agents, for example, that only American citizens can vote. Why wouldn't we do that if we take this seriously?
So it's not just Clapper who's saying that the Russians are trying to meddle in the 2018 elections. It's guys you may have heard of: Mike Pompeo, Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates, the Director of National Security Mike Rogers. Right? They testified before Congress.
I'm pretending to believe it.
Well, believe them. They're Republicans.
I don't care about people's party ID.
Okay, well,
there are many Republicans I wouldn't trust for anything.
That's up to you.
But I'm just saying, let's pretend it's true.
Yeah.
That the main espionage threat we face is from Russia. Okay? Mm-hmm. If we really believe that, then why aren't we going through every voter roll in the United States and making sure that only Americans are determining the outcome of the election? Well, why wouldn't we do that?
I think we should absolutely make sure that the voter integrity is as kind of upheld as possible. Okay.
What would happen if we tried to do that? Oh, Democrats would freak out and call it racist.
But here's where you kind of dismiss Clapper that I think is not funny. Your advertisers on Fox News spend billions of dollars a year to move people's opinions about things, right? And if they didn't think that was effective, they wouldn't spend it. What Clapper's saying is the Russians reached through Facebook 126 million people. 135 million people voted. Okay? So the point is that they were trying to move opinion. Okay. And if you think that doesn't work, then you should tell your advertisers go somewhere else.
What he actually said was, I have no evidence that what I just said was true. He just said that on television.
No,
you can look. Actually, he did say that.
No, what he said was that we weren't charged with assessing what exactly as an agency.
He was asked. I just watched the tape. Whatever. Look, here's the point. I'm not contesting the core claim, though I believe it to be untrue. I'm just asking you in the most sincere way possible, if we believe that the Russians are going to do this again and they really are a threat, then why aren't we doing something about it? Why are we allowing electronic voting? Why don't we go back to paper ballots? And I'll tell you the answer. Because Democrats like loose voting rules because they benefit from voter fraud. Yeah. So they do everything they can.
That's a perversion of the fact that
why aren't they doing something about it?
People who are inclined to vote Democrats blacks, Hispanics, and so forth, are the ones who ultimately are, I think, held to a standard that is going to be very hard for them to meet in terms of IDs and so forth, driver's licenses.
What?
I think statistically, the people who are lower socioeconomically don't have driver's license. That's not a revelation.
No, you don't need a driver's license.
Well,
You need
I'm
a
just saying,
government ID
whatever it is.
to hold a job or open a bank account. This is an insane.
And it may be you have to go 50 miles away to the office that gives you that ID, which they don't have the wherewithal to do.
Here's what I'm saying. I think it's a very patronizing thing to say about a large group of people.
It's statistically true.
It's not actually statistically true. I've dug into the stats, and it's a lie.
Yeah.
But let me just get to what we can do in the future. Why wouldn't we say paper ballots only? Why wouldn't we say, let's go through every voter roll in America and make sure only American citizens and not spooky foreign agents are registered to vote?
And
Why is that hard?
I think we should make sure that only Americans are voting, as we should make sure that it's only Americans who are trying to influence campaigns, not Russians, not all these people that Donald Trump Jr. met with. That's against the law.
What's hilarious is that we both live in a city and that thrives on foreign influence, and we know, 25 people who've gotten rich in our city from foreign governments, not Russia. Okay,
Right.
so let's stop lying about that. This city is totally influenced by foreign governments, just not Russia.
Well,
China is the top of the list.
It's against the law to try to influence the campaign, right? So these people who are foreign agents and trying to influence what some department or other.
So you would be in favor of examining every voter roll in every state to make certain that every person on those rolls is currently an American citizen.
And I'd like to see the same
would
effort.
you be in favor of that?
I'm saying, and I'd like to see the same effort put into registering people who have heretofore been basically kept from registering.
Yes. No one's being kept from registering. That's a lie. They register the homeless
that is
here.
a lie. I think it's
totally
demonstrably true.
But hold on. The people who are on, I just want to get you on the record here. You would be for, in the name of protecting this country and the integrity of its elections from foreign influence, making sure that only American citizens are on the voter rolls, period.
I think that only Americans should vote, but again,
American citizens.
American citizens should vote. I think that's what I consider an American.
But shouldn't we take everyone else off the rolls who's not?
Of course, non-American citizens should not be voting in the United States. And I don't think there's, notwithstanding what Donald Trump said about the millions, right? That's a lie. And he should take that back. That's dishonest to the American voter.
Democrats can't even concede that we're allowed to ask on the census form whether you're a citizen or not. On the census.
Because that affects other things having to do with what money might go to a particular state or county.
So there are municipalities here in the D.C. area in Maryland that allow non-citizens to vote. You must be against that. I mean, that would be a prime way for Russians to influence our elections.
I think only American citizens should vote in federal elections. Absolutely.
What about state elections?
Well,
Russians can't influence the state elections too. You could have Vladimir Putin come to Silver Spring, Maryland.
Here's
and cast
the problem.
A vote.
You think it's a laughing matter that the Russians did what they did. Most Americans
what I think
don't.
Is laughing matter.
Most Americans think it's not funny that the Russians meddled, and in fact we're trying to favor Trump with something that our own head of Homeland Security can't acknowledge.
What I find
That's
hilarious is when Democrats pretend that they care about the integrity of elections. All they care about is power. You know that. And whether their candidates win. That is the sum total of what they care about. So to pretend otherwise is like so ludicrous. I live here. I know the truth.
I think if you flipped the names Trump and Hillary and had the Russians trying to help her, we would have had impeachment hearings starting on January 21st.
Russia, which has a lower average life expectancy than Bangladesh, is secretly in control of our country.
It's not secretly. They're actually ridiculously open about it, which is the sad thing.
Richard, it was great to see you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a Fox News alert for you. North Korea has responded to President Trump's cancellation of a planned summit, and astonishingly, their message is not angry. North Korea's foreign minister said his government is still willing to sit down with the United States, quote, at any time, at any format, and is, quote, willing to give the United States time and opportunities to reconsider today's cancellation. Not quite sure what that means, but we'll continue to follow the story because it's amazing. Well, the Russia hoax is backfiring. Democrats are now trying another tack going into the midterm elections. This one is attacking the president over rising gas prices. But wait, haven't the Democrats been demanding higher gas prices for more than a decade? Mark Stein may remember that. He joins us after the break. So the geniuses in the strategy division over at the DNC assumed they could ride the Russia hoax all the way to a midterm win, but polls suggest that might not be working out. So now they're going after the administration's economic record. Unemployment is pretty low. The stock market is pretty high. So instead, the attack is on gas prices, which are going up, and that is bad for the middle class. Something to be worried about. The problem, of course, is the Democratic Party has spent years vowing to increase gas prices if elected in the name of stopping global warming. The 2016 platform literally demanded a higher tax. Mark Steyn is an author and columnist. He was alive in 2016, paying attention. He may remember that plank in the platform. What does he make of it now? Hey, Mark.
Well, hi, Tucker. Yeah, it's kind of any port in a storm. The blue wave is petering out as it comes towards shore. And you said the Russia hoax. I mean, you've got to think in the chancelleries of the world right now, if all the people who told us that Trump had no chance to win in 2016, if somehow the blue wave doesn't happen and the Republicans win the midterms, there's a huge opportunity for a sinister foreign power out there that they can get the Democrats to blame them for stealing the election. So we can have a Slovenia investigation or a Tajikistan investigation or a Solomon Islands investigation. So if you're the Solomon Islands ambassador, now would be a really good time to book a lunch with, say, Mitch McConnell so it'll look suspicious on the Wednesday morning after in November. And I don't want to give any ideas to the DNC or the FBI, but if the FBI has any spare Cambridge professors lying around that it would like to, say to minor Trump officials, maybe a staffer to Mitch McConnell. Oh, you know that Slovenia has all those DNC emails. I mean, you've got to figure this is the time to be moving on to the next plot now that Russia hasn't worked out.
So you're laughing about this, but the next independent counsel, or maybe 4 independent counsels from now, will be pulling this tape and using it as evidence at your trial.
Yeah. No, that's right. What did I know and when did I know it? That's, but I mean, one of the things, I mean, just to be serious here for a moment, because I don't really take this thing that seriously. I think the Democrats actually have a problem with a lack of message, and to profess now to be concerned about gas prices after they've derided the Trump tax cut as crumbs and all the rest of it. I mean, I think actually the solution is not to replace the Russia investigation with gas prices. The solution is to figure out that Trump connected with millions and millions of people who switched on the TV and found neither the Republican nor Democrat establishments in the least bit concerned about them. And that's the difference. That's what made the difference.
Middle-class life expectancy, as of yesterday, is down for the 3rd year in a row. Why don't they run on that? But they don't care. That's the problem.
No,
so
well, I mean...
I'm sorry, I got to ask you about Harvey Weinstein. So, because I can't control myself. Obviously, the ex-Hollywood mogul, mega donor, and Hillary Clinton superfan. He's set to turn himself in to authorities in New York on sex crime charges.
Right.
This story's basically, this is the denouement of the story. Do you want to put a bow on it? What should we think of this?
Well, you're right about the Hillary connection. They actually had lunch to discuss after her defeat, Harvey Weinstein making the documentary about Hillary's defeat. That's how tied in they are. I think this is quite important, though, because the Me Too movement, there's an element of moral panic to it, but there's no doubt about this guy. He's been credibly accused of rape by actresses in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, France, New Zealand, all over the planet. And this tells us something about the way wealthy and powerful men use things like confidentiality agreements to silence people and get away with their crimes for decades on end. And that's the lesson here. Don't live in silence, don't live in fear, and frankly, things like confidentiality agreements, I think, should have a far more circumscribed place in American life.
I mean, there's also, I agree with everything you said, but there's also a sub-lesson here, which is, if you're wondering what people are up to, look at the behavior that they denounce in public. It's probably the very same thing. I mean, Harvey Weinstein was this great champion of women, as was Schneiderman. The one thing I'm not in favor of is hurting women, and of course they were both doing that exact thing. I don't think that's an accident.
No, and I also think that's a liberal thing, by the way, is you profess to care about people in general. So you care about third world people in general, or gays in general, or Muslims in general, and you take that as a license to trash and abuse people in particular. And that's what ties Harvey Weinstein, Schneiderman, and a lot of these mostly Democrat, mostly liberal figures together. They said all the right things in public, and then they've got the door lock button under the desk in private, and they've got the standard non-disclosure agreement stacked in triplicate inside the desk.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's what they all have in common. They love humanity in general and abuse humans in particular.
That's perfect. If reading and writing still exist once this revolution is over, I'll be really excited to read the history of this period. That stands back and makes sense of it. So I hope you write it. Mark Stein, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Tucker.
Well, the Democratic Party in open warfare against ICE. One congressman just attacked the agency for doing their job. It's a very amusing tape, and we wouldn't want the night pass without showing it to you. So we will next. Well, ICE Chief Thomas Homan testified on Capitol Hill recently. Democratic Congresswoman Nanette Barragan of California decided she couldn't waste the opportunity, so she began berating him for the crime of doing what he is paid to do. According to the Congresswoman, ICE's enforcement of national laws is immoral. Watch this.
We love to talk about this issue about the MS-13 gangs. We love to paint immigrants as criminals. That is not the complete facts. And that is very offensive for me to see continuing to happen. It's continuing to message this anti-immigrant agenda.
First of all, no one on this panel is anti-immigrant. We're law enforcement officers who enforce the law that you all enacted. So to sit there and say that we're anti-immigrants is wrong.
Well, we invited that non-genius member of Congress to come on the show and explain the reasoning behind her statement, but of course she declined. Instead, we're joined by New York attorney and illegal immigrant Cesar Vargas. Cesar, thanks for coming on.
Tucker, thank you so much for having me again.
I don't know why I find this is maybe the most amusing thing I think I've ever seen. So here's I guess she's a member of Congress, going head-to-head with the director of ICE and claiming that it is wrong for him to do what he is paid to do. What does she think ICE does?
Well, any law enforcement agency, their job is to keep us safe, correct? Their job is to ensure that community trusts law enforcement, to ensure everyone is safe, regardless of their immigration status.
No, it's to enforce the laws.
No,
yeah.
well, exactly, right? Why do we enforce the law? To keep us safe. Now, ICE is tripling the amount of people arrested without violent criminal records. So the congressman is right on that point, where not only is ICE going after the rapists, the murderers, they're going after grandma. They're going after
so does the law? No, wait, hold on. You're the attorney.
Nanny.
I've got a question for you. So the law says that ICE can only arrest people with certain kinds of criminal records or commit certain kinds of crimes. Is that what the federal law says?
Federal law says that Immigration Customs Enforcement has to detain people who violently violate laws in like murder, like anything like that. But the law says that ICE, any law enforcement agency has the discretion to pursue the most violent criminals. So ICE is going after the grannies instead of the murderers. ICE is going after the day laborers instead of the rapists. So ICE is not doing their job when they are just focusing on everyone instead of using our resources on keeping us
for
safe.
example, hold on. You're here illegally, correct?
No. Like I had DACA, and now I'm in the process of changing my immigration status.
Okay.
So no. So we have to understand.
Okay.
I'm an attorney. You're not, and your viewers are not. So I need to explain the law clearly to every single person.
You may be an attorney, but you're misstating a fact, which is that people who are here illegally are by definition violating federal law. And so ICE absolutely has a right, in fact, it's its charter to enforce federal law, so it has a right to detain them, and the United States government and its citizens have a right to deport them. Whether they choose to or not is another question. But you can't attack somebody for enforcing the law as written. By the way, as written by the Congress in which that member of Congress sits. So I don't know if they taught you this part in law school, but what she said is insane.
No, I think it's very clearly. Look, listen, ICE has a job to do. No question about it. The Congress has their job to do. And you're right, they haven't got their job done in years. They haven't passed immigration reform. They haven't passed proper
what? No,
education.
that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
But I think it comes to the point of where we are at this moment, that we need to keep this nation safe. And ICE should go after people who violently threaten our security.
I don't know why I'm taking a lecture on ICE law from someone who broke our laws to come here. But hold on. If you think that that's true, then you're obviously not bothered by the president's emphasis on rounding up known members of a murderous street gang. But I bet you are bothered by that, right? Are you one of the people who, are you one of the animal rights activists who wept when he used the word animal to describe MS-13?
Well, listen, I think we should keep our nation safe. And law enforcement has their job to do, whether it's the NYPD, the LAPD, or ICE. They have a job to do. Now, the president is confusing two things, like many things. If MS-13 is the product of the U.S., we created MS-13.
Oh, it's
just
our
as we
fault.
created the KKK.
Why does it always come down? You know, this is actually the one thing that does irritate me, so I want to cut this part of the conversation short because I don't want to get mad at you. But blaming the United States for fentanyl ODs, for MS-13, for the waves of people coming to this country illegally, in your description, it's always our fault.
No,
we deserve
it's the
this.
Fact. Very different thing.
It's not
you
a
said
fact.
don't
it's a
have a lecture.
subjective assessment.
It's a
Okay,
fact.
but hold on. Wait.
We created in the 1980s when you just look it up.
I don't have any patience for this, so I'm not going to let you continue because you don't know what you're talking about. I don't want to mislead my viewers. But let me just ask you really quickly: if you think the job of ICE is to protect American citizens and they ought to go after violent criminals, then why wouldn't you be encouraging them to round up every MS-13 member in this country illegally and deport them tomorrow? But I bet you're not for that. I bet you're defending MS-13 like everybody else on your side, right?
No, I think if MS-13 or any gang member violently commits a crime, kills someone, they should spend the rest of their life in prison. That's what our law says, right?
Someone's a member,
I'm agreeing with you and many of your viewers.
If you believe someone's a member of MS-13 and he's here illegally, you don't think that's enough to deport him?
Well, why are we going to really exacerbate a problem?
Okay, so I just want to reveal to our viewers where you're
actually coming from. They come over there and make people come back. You know, it's the logic that we need to see. We cannot exacerbate a problem by sending people who we created.
It's America's fault. Yeah, we created it. What do you mean we? You're not even a citizen. Anyway, Caesar, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Time for final exam. Can you beat our news experts at the news? You'll find out after the break.